Okay, so okay, so good evening, guys. Trust we're all doing great. So, like we know, the weekly commentary I usually do it by 10:30, but I discovered I want to be consistent to it, right? Despite the fact that I'm trying to just help most traders out, I want to be consistent with it. But the 10:30 time is normally too late, being that it's a Sunday. I get off from church and all the activities, I just get too tired by 10:30. So I'm just going to move it down to 10 p.m. I think I still have a lot of energy around this time. So I can be consistent with it. So like you guys know, we are going to be going straight into the pairs. I normally advise my students and people like talking with our mentoring to trade GU, right? Because in the forex market, sticking to one pair will make you a lot of money. There's no need jumping with pairs. So I always advise GU if you're trading the forex pairs, GU, right? I started out trading NAS, but kind of like taking a break from NAS because of many challenges with prop firms, restricting leverage and all that. So I'm just planning to get back to it as soon as I can get a reasonable, um, considerable funding for my personal life account. So I'll get back to NAS. But for now, I advise to trade either GU or EU, right? So the analysis I'm going to be doing for GU, it applies to EU also because they are most of the time they are about 85 to 90% correlated. So if you're selling GU, you do well to also sell EU, except for very few times where there's crack and they go their separate ways, right? But you'll be doing well to also follow the analysis for GU on EU. Okay, so first of all, let's start off looking at what's right. There are three things you always want to ask yourself when you look at doing your analysis. You want to get your bias, you want to get your direction for the week or for the day. You want to ask yourself, where is price coming from? Right? You want to know where price is coming from. Then you also want to know where price is currently, and you also want to anticipate where price may likely go to next, right? So you want to find out those three things to tell you what price is doing, right? But being a day trader, I don't always pay attention to the weekly. I just want to just get an overall or perspective on the weekly before I drop down to the daily. So on the weekly, like we see that the weekly, if you look to our left, you want to pay attention to what price has just done on the left hand side of price, and also you want to look at what price is did at the right hand price side of price, right? So mostly the right hand side is more important than the left hand side, but the left hand side is kind of like telling you if there are any institutional reference points that price might want to be reversing off or price might want to be targeting, right? So that's why we always want to look at the left hand side. So if we look at here, the major thing we're looking at currently on GU is we are looking at this order block right now. If you see, this is so precise because you see price is rejecting off the sorry guys, just sorry guys, one of my sons is not yet asleep. I always want to do this around this time, but coincidentally he's still awake. So let's just get to it. So we see that price is rejecting off the mean threshold of this order block, right? You see, for this week, how many weeks right now? For 3 weeks right now, price has not been able to break above the mean threshold. So that tells me something. It tells me that most likely we are looking to go down. We're looking to go down. So I'll be tilting to the bearish side. I'll be tilting for the rough bias, right? I'll be tilting for a weekly bearish candle close for going into this week, right? That's what I'll be looking at for this week. Why? Because if this zone was quite weak, we wouldn't get this multiple rejection. And like we can see, it has formed like a swing high on this, right? What's the swing high? You see that this particular candle here, this middle candle is higher than the left and the right, right? So it has formed a swing high here, telling us that most likely we're going to be tanking down, right? Now, you might want to say we have a fair value gap here, but why? This fair value gap was supposed to be an engineer to take out this liquidity to the top side here, but it failed, right? So most likely, I'm looking at this fair value gap violating on the weekly, right? So we're going to jump straight down to the daily to see a clearer picture, right, for the daily. And also, if you notice on the weekly, you see that this high, this was a liquidity run, right? It just ran it a little bit. It didn't really go above it. So just to grab some stop losses or inducement of the weekly level to engineer the bearish move, right? So if we go into the daily time frame, the daily time frame is also telling us similar, right? If we look at the daily, we see that we run liquidity, the upside here, we ran liquidity, and currently we have gotten a market structure shift, right? Gotten a market structure shift, right? Last week, I had a bullish bias for GU to be able to take out this high before coming down, but it seems like this high is going to be left open. If this high is not taken, this might be just the last liquidity to be run before the bearish movement, right? Might just be the last buy side, right? But price refused to take out the buy side, and with all the rejection it kept giving at this particular order block here on the daily time frame, you see. So there's been a respecting of this fair value gap on the daily too. Can you see that price refused to close above the consequent encroachment being the midpoint of the fair value gap, right? So this also supports what we are looking at on the weekly time frame, right? So the daily is aligning same with this. So where are my possible sell side liquidity I'll be looking for? I'll be looking for, these are my possible draw on liquidity, right? This sell side, I'll be looking for price to run this sell side liquidity. Looking for price to run this, right? But the immediate one will be the previous day's low, right? This is the immediate one. This is immediate draw on liquidity, right? So I normally Mondays are kind of like funny for the weekly profile. Mondays most times Mondays are like accumulation, right? So that's why sometimes I'm wary, except I see a very clean setup on Monday. I'm wary in trading Mondays, right? Or sometimes I just stay off on Mondays to just see what price is going to present. But most times you see market makers might just want to just move 50% of the move on Monday. So these days I just watch price. If I like what I'm seeing, I trade Mondays, right? So this is the first draw on liquidity I'll be looking for the sell going into this week, Monday, then most possibly here, right? Why are we looking at here? Because also we still have, if you look at this, we see what I teach people. I teach people about two ranges, right? We have two ranges. I call it range one and range two, right? If you look at from this low to this high on the fib, we see that, right? We are still in premium, right? We are still in premium. So that probably is the reason why price was not, it's not wanting to go higher, right? We're still in premium of this if range one, right? So if you look at range one, and also if you look at our range two, you see, we're even deep in premium in range two. So most possibly the closest point to this would be like the midpoint of both range one and range two, which is this fair value gap. So this would be like a long term, depending on how price wants to move. And also we're looking at economic calendar for this week to see if there are any news drivers to drive liquidity into the market. But this would be a long term draw for price. But first draw will be here. The next draw will be here going into the week. And also, there are also other things we need to look out. I just need to point out for you guys, for you to validate this bias, because we have had we've had multiple what do you call it, smart money trap, we call it SMT, right? Had multiple SMTs both on EU and GU, right? That's also a clue. I'll be giving you guys a tip. I'll be giving you guys this week. If you're trading GU, it's always fair to also look at EU to be able to see all these SMTs, because these SMTs also will guide your buyers, right? So let's look at one SMT, right? Can we see that this price did not run this high. If you see the way price was just a little small weak for this high, right? On EU. Now let's look at GU, right? Let's look at for GU, sorry, let's look at EU. Can you see what happened here? Can you see the major SMT, right? This high was run up, right? So it gave like this was like a liquidity run, but on GU it wasn't run, right? So if we go down to the daily, it's the same thing, right? Sorry, I marked this because my analysis, see the daily, you see this particular high was not run. The high of 21st of April wasn't run on EU. But if you go to GU, that high was run. Can we see that? So there are multiple SMT also doing this. If we go down to the 4-hour time frame, we see spot SMT supporting the bearish movement. Like this is what we call cracks, right? Once you see all these cracks, you know that price is. Can we see the high of Wednesday? I think let me go to EU. I'll show you this. When I was doing, can you see this? See for it, this high was not run. This is the high of Friday, 9th of May, right? 9th. It wasn't run on EU, but on GU, it was run like crazy, right? Can you see it? So this is it. Now, all these are supporting that, these cracks are supporting that price is not going to go higher. Price is going to go lower, right? So briefly, this is what we're looking at for this week. So if you ask me, I'll say I'm 75 to 80% tilting to the bearish side for EU and GU for this week. So I'll be expecting a weekly bearish closure, right? So as you can see, we have been accumulating, right? So we have been given like a consolidation here. So most likely, probably Monday might want to go and get the final inducement of this level before tanking, right? So that's also a possibility, right? I mentioned it earlier in this call that I might just want to get the final inducement of this level, right? To take out all the early sellers that sold from this fair value gap, either this high or this particular high here before price will run. But I'm most likely I'm anticipating that this high will be a protected high, right, to support the bearish movement. So thank you guys. Hope, do you have any questions or anything I'm looking at? Hello guys, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So any question or anybody has maybe a contrary view or something that you're thinking, but this is my bias going into this for GU, right? I don't really need to look at the XY. I don't really need to look at EU. So you see this align. So seeing SMT also playing out between EU and GU, that also validates what market is showing. So this is first draw on liquidity, first draw here, second, then the place here. So we'll be watching for what price will do because this is close to discount. This is discount. This fair value gap is in discount of this range, right? So if we're going to turn upward, this will be likely turning point for the buy at this fair value gap here, right? So you can unmute your mic to ask your questions or any other views you're seeing.